Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Steve Leibowitz, and coming up in today's newscast. First, terrorist rocket fire in Judea and Samaria in 18 years. Washington orders an end of joint research beyond Israel's 1967 borders. And Wonder Woman, Israeli-born actress Gadot to receive a star in Hollywood. An IDF soldier was killed by friendly fire overnight during a military exercise in southern Israel. 19-year-old paratrooper Corporal Or Yisraelov from Bat Yam was named as the victim. The accidental shooting took place during a live fire training drill in the south. The soldier was reportedly holding a signal flag during the training exercise and was hit by a bullet fired from about 250 meters away. A probe has been opened into the incident, but initial indications show that there was no obvious mishandling of the night safety conditions. Further investigations are needed to reveal where the breakdown occurred. On Monday, for the first time in nearly 20 years, 2 rockets were fired from Judea and Samaria toward Israel. The 2 rockets landed inside Palestinian Authority territory, and luckily there were no casualties. Defense Minister Gallant, meanwhile, held talks today with a senior PA official in light of the recent escalation. While the rockets were very primitive and did not pose a direct threat to Israel, it does mark a very worrisome development in Judea and Samaria, as the Palestinian Authority appears to be on the brink of collapse, and new terror threats backed by Iran are emerging from the area. Many voices are now calling for a wide-scale counterterrorism operation in the territories, while others are calling for accelerated building. And so, joining us now for more is the former head of the Military Prosecution Office for Judea and Samaria, Lieutenant Colonel Reserves, Attorney Morris Hirsch. Terrorists fired rockets toward Israel from Jenin. The first time rockets were fired in Judea and Samaria in 18 years. They didn't cause damage, but it certainly seems like a troubling development, isn't it? Do you think that other rockets are being produced like this, or is this a one-off?
I think it's very likely that there are more rockets being produced. I think what we're seeing in the Shomron, in the northern Samaria, is a complete lack of PA intervention or PA control, maybe. This started, if you remember, 2 years ago when the initial Lions Den forces terrorist group popped up. It was spurred on by the Palestinian Authority, spurred on by Mahmoud Abbas, and now they just seem to have lost control. If you remember also the arrest of Saadi, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist, who the Shabak then linked to the intervention of Iran. We're seeing really a massive picture of Iran intervening more and more, definitely in northern Samaria, and really the loss of control, almost total control of the Palestinian Authority. At this point, I would think that it's probably even in the interest of the Palestinian Authority that Israeli forces be allowed into Jenin, into Shechem, into that whole area, in order to get rid of these terror cells.
I want to take you in a little bit different direction. As a former prosecutor, Jewish vigilantes have been attacking Arab homes and cars and other property. The top security leadership is calling the action nationalistically motivated terrorism. Are those vigilantes terrorists? And if so, why aren't they being rounded up? There have been so few arrests.
I think that there's no question or shadow of a doubt that the Israeli citizens who take the law into their own hands and indiscriminately attack Palestinians could possibly and should well rightly be defined as terrorists, and they should be arrested, and Israel should really prosecute them to the full extent of the law. I don't think anyone has any question about that. The difference that we're seeing is that on one hand you have a group of people, terrorists, who are either sponsored by the Palestinian Authority, motivated by the Palestinian Authority, even initially, and have now lost control, and the Palestinian Authority doing nothing about them. They're not out there on the streets arresting the terrorists. They're not out there on the streets intervening and really cutting off that Iranian support, which is something that on the Israeli side, it may take a while, but eventually we will see the arrest of these Israeli vigilantes. and they will be prosecuted.
Colonel, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Rami.
Washington says it's deeply troubled by Israel's decision to move forward with 57 new homes in Judea and Samaria. ILTV's William Sharon has more.
27% of the homes, or about 1,500 units, are slated for the Eli settlement, including plans to legalize 3 outposts as new neighborhoods. Eli was the site of a deadly terrorist shooting last week in which 4 Israeli civilians were killed. The State Department said that the U.S. is deeply troubled by the move, saying it opposes unilateral actions that make a 2-state solution more difficult to achieve and are an obstacle to peace. The message went on to call on the government of Israel to fulfill the commitments it made in Aqaba and Sharm el-Sheikh and return to dialogue and de-escalation. The civil administration's Higher Planning Council for Judea and Samaria only gave its final approval to 818 of the homes, while the remainder of the plans were held to further considerations.
The U.S. government has announced that it will cut science and technology cooperation with Israeli institutions in Judea and Samaria, the Golan Heights, and eastern Jerusalem. The move returns to a long-standing U.S. policy that was reversed under the Trump administration. Announced new guidance to U.S. government agencies advising that engaging in bilateral scientific and technological cooperation with Israel in geographic areas which came under the administration of Israel after 1967 and which remain subject to final status negotiations are inconsistent with U.S. foreign policy. At the same time, the State Department stressed that the United States strongly values scientific and technological cooperation with Israel in all other areas. The decision will most visibly impact Ariel University in Samaria. Leaders of the Republican Party attacked the administration's decision. Senator Ted Cruz slammed the administration for what he called anti-Semitic discrimination against Jews. He said the Biden administration was pathologically obsessed with undermining Israel. In a briefing with reporters, Foreign Minister Eli Cohen protested the move, saying, "I object to the decision and think it's wrong. In similar cases in the past, the Israeli government fully reimbursed parties damaged by such decisions." The policy was briefly reversed under former U.S. President Donald Trump when Prime Minister Netanyahu and then U.S. Ambassador David Friedman signed an agreement that removed all previous geographic restrictions from the two countries' scientific cooperation. And signaling growing impatience with Washington, Prime Minister Netanyahu will reportedly visit China next month. According to an exclusive story in the Israeli news site Zman Yisrael and confirmed today by Netanyahu, the decision was made after it became clear that an invitation to meet President Biden in Washington is not forthcoming. No dates have yet been set for the Beijing trip. No plans have been announced in Jerusalem or Beijing, but it was reported that Netanyahu will meet with President Xi Jinping and other Chinese leaders. A source reportedly told Zman Yisrael that the trip is meant to signal to Washington that Netanyahu has other diplomatic opportunities to pursue. And joining us now to discuss the brewing crisis in U.S.-Israel relations is Dan Diker, president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, who will also be our guest later this evening on ILTV's Insider. Dan, the U.S. harshly condemned Israeli settlement policy and announced a reinstatement of the boycott on research across the Green Line. Republican Senator Ted Cruz called the move anti-Semitic. Has the Biden administration, in effect, given its okay to BDS in the territories?
Well, I think you said it very well, Steve. The United States has officially joined the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, and even the Hamas's policy of really erasure of boycotting Israel because of its postal code. And this is a very unfortunate development for U.S. policy. It clearly indicates that this administration is a continuation of the Obama administration policies. Israel has the full right to build in areas under its control, according to the Oslo II agreements of September 1995. The United States knows that. It can't possibly be inconsistent with American foreign policy because the United States administration under the Clinton administration were the signatory guarantors, in addition to the UN, the EU, Denmark, Russia, in the Oslo II agreement with the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization. So why is it that the United States doesn't penalize the Palestinian Authority for building housing starts in Area A, in areas under its full administrative control, or Area B, for that matter, under its administrative control? You don't hear a word. You hear a prejudicial...
Dan, I just want to get on to another issue. Netanyahu today confirmed that he's going to be going to Beijing. He's going to be traveling to China, an enemy, or certainly a fierce competitor of the United States. Is that going to make him any more welcome in Washington, the fact that he's going to China? He still hasn't gotten that invite to Washington. Is it a wise move?
Well, I think the administration didn't exactly express huge disappointment or dismay with the Chinese diplomatic mediation in the Middle East. Israel has new partners in the Middle East. We have a certain level of normalization, even with Saudi Arabia. We've got the Abraham Accord countries, Morocco, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. There are many other countries that are reaching out to the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs as a private institute, but asking for normalization with Israel. So we've got a vastly changing Middle East region, and I do think it's profoundly unfortunate that that President Biden has not yet invited his strongest ally in the region, the State of Israel, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, to Washington.
Well, let me ask you this.
Minister Netanyahu,
why does he need an invitation? I remember there was a time some years ago, Obama was president. I was actually there in Washington at the time. Netanyahu showed up in Washington, spoke to Congress, made his pitch about the Iranian nuclear deal. There's another mini Iranian nuclear deal coming up. Might Netanyahu make a trip to Washington without an invitation from Biden?
It's possible. It depends whether he will receive an invitation from the Senate Majority Leader or not, which is what happened back in 2016. The State of Israel has many colleagues and friends. We have a relationship we do have a relationship with China, and needless to say, there are sensitivities, and one must be very careful in dealing with the Communist Party and the Communist regime in China. But we have commercial relationship with China in the Haifa port. We have relationship with them in certain installations, utilities in the south. So Israel has options, but clearly Israel's best friend in the world is the United States, and I think it's deeply regrettable that the United States. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, who has been a many decades-old friend of Mr. Netanyahu and the State of Israel, has not yet invited his greatest friend to meet in Washington.
Dan,
my sense is he didn't do it.
No, I'm just sorry that we're running out of time, but I just wanted to say, and this is a personal thing I wanted to say to you, you should be a man that's representing Israeli policy around the world. Dan Diker, you're an amazing spokesman for the State of Israel. Let me just say that. And thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
The Israel Innovation Authority published its annual State of Israel High-Tech Report for 2023 and highlighted the critical role the sector plays in the Israeli economy. The report warned that the State of Israel needs, especially during times of economic slowdown, to preserve and nurture this national resource in the face of growing international competition.
The annual State of the High-Tech Industry in Israel report for 2023, compiled by the Israel Innovation Authority, was presented on Tuesday to the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Ophir Akunis, and highlighted the importance of the high-tech sector as the largest and most significant growth engine of the Israeli economy. According to the report, in 2022, the high-tech sector accounted for 18.1% of Israel's GDP, with 9,093 tech companies as of April 2023. This places the Israeli startup ecosystem as the third largest globally. Yet when comparing Israel to other high-tech hubs worldwide, the report states that 91% of R&D in Israel is carried out by the private sector, the highest percentage among OECD countries, with more than 50% coming from foreign funding. While Israel has the lowest percentage of government funding for R&D among the OECD, with only 9% funded by the government. The report also highlighted that investments in Israeli startups have grown more than fivefold from 2013 to early 2023, with a total of around $95 billion raised during these years. This places Israeli innovation in 6th place globally in terms of capital raised for startups during the period examined.
And after the 2023 State of Israel High-Tech Report was released, ILTV editor-in-chief Lidar Grav-Elazi sat down with Dror Bin, CEO of the Israel Innovation Authority, to discuss the current trends and challenges, as well as the future of Israeli high-tech. Let's take a look.
So Dror Bin, we're here at the Israel Innovation Authority to talk about the latest report coming out. What can you tell us about it? What characterizes the Israeli high-tech sector?
Well, yes, this is the 2023 report, kind of the state of the Israeli high-tech. You know, when you look upon the data or the numbers, it's in a quite an amazing situation. It has become really like the axis of the Israeli economy. And what do I mean by that? It contributes 18% of the total GDP of the country. And this is a phenomenal number. Just as a reference or as a benchmark, in the US, it's about 9 to 10% of GDP. In the EU, it's about 5 to 6%. So this is really unique. Today, about 14% of the workforce of Israeli employees work in the high-tech sector. It is the main engine for growth. In the last decade, in terms of employment, the Israeli high-tech grew by 6% on average every year, while the rest of the economy grew at the pace of 2%. Not to mention the growth in salaries of people who work in the high-tech. So this is really, you know, many times we use the term that the high-tech is the engine of the Israeli economy. But when you look upon the numbers, this is indeed the case. And it has become pivotal and even crucial to the success and prosperity of the Israeli economy.
And so what differentiates Israel's high-tech sector from other tech hubs worldwide?
That's a good question, and actually we now perceive ourselves as being in a kind of competition. You know, if we look back 10 or 15 years ago, most of the startups were created in the Silicon Valley and in Israel. And this is why Israel received the title Startup Nation. But in the last decade, I believe that things have changed, and many of the developed and developing economies have realized that technological innovation is the key to the future economy, and invested a lot in developing their own tech hubs. And today we see multiple tech hubs in the US, by the way, not only in the Silicon Valley, but also other metropolitan areas. In Europe, you see quite a few tech hubs rising. In Asia, this is also the case. And all these tech hubs, and this is quite a new situation, are competing basically for the same resources. So all of this is quite a new paradigm for the global high-tech, and obviously Israel is in the top league of tech hubs in the world. In terms of number of high-tech companies, and this is something which is new in the report, we have about 9,000 high-tech companies, and we are the third in absolute number in the world. Compared to other tech hubs. And when you factor in the size of the country, this is quite amazing. So we want to sustain our lead position as a leading tech hub and to improve our competitiveness even. And this is, for me, as the CEO of the Innovation Authority, the main mission of the Innovation Authority, to make sure that we sustain and improve our competitiveness situation.
And so, according to the report, what are some of the challenges that the Israeli high-tech sector is facing?
Yeah, well, I think we are looking at multiple challenges as we speak. First of all, there is a global slowdown because of the global macroeconomics, the geopolitical situation between the US and China, the war in Europe, the increase in inflation, and as a result also in the interest rate. So all of this is changing completely the appetite of investors to take risks and invest in early stage companies or even in growth companies. We see this trend everywhere in all tech hubs. We see a sharp decline in investments. So this is obviously the first challenge. This is not the first slowdown. In the last 2 decades, I think we had, 3 or 4 such slowdowns in the high tech. And from each one of those slowdowns, the Israeli high tech only got out stronger. So I believe that this will be the case also this time. But every such a slowdown also brings with it a phase change. And what do I mean by that? Most of the innovation and disruptiveness came in the last decade from the move to digital economy. I believe that today we are almost at the end of this wave. Now we speak a lot about generative AI, and this probably will bring another wave of innovation. But I believe that humanity needs innovation also in different areas, not just digital economy, but in the real economy. And what do I mean by that? By 2050, the global population is going to grow, going to reach almost 10 billion people. It's also going to be much older. People over the age of 60, I think they're going to be something like 2 billion people. So how do you provide healthcare to such population in a cost-effective way? How do you provide food? How do you provide efficient transportation? How do you provide energy? How do you do all of that when you want to zero gas emissions and get to a sustainable planet? So all of those challenges require technological innovation. They will not solve by themselves. So all these challenges are going to be at the forefront of disruptive innovation that is going to come out. And we believe that Israel has a lot to contribute in this area.
And so are you at all optimistic for the future?
I'm very optimistic. I think that the local hub is very strong. We have extraordinary entrepreneurs. The toughest challenge that you give them, the more enthusiasm you get. We have here a very sophisticated VC community, about 500 different investment vehicles. We have great universities and researchers, so all the ingredients are there. And I think that over the last decades, the Israeli high-tech showed a lot of resilience and ability to adapt itself to what the world needs. And I'm quite certain it will happen also this time.
Okay, Zalbin, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
And in some positive and exciting news, Israeli actress Gal Gadot, best known for her portrayal as Wonder Woman, will receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the first Israeli actress to ever receive the honor. Gadot found out about the announcement while promoting her new film, and this is what she had to say.
Hey everyone, it's me here, and I was just doing press for Heart of Stone, and then I get a phone call from my husband saying that the Israeli press had been calling to congratulate him for my Hollywood star, and he called to ask about it, and I had absolutely no idea what was going on, so we called my publicist, and apparently I'm receiving a Hollywood star. This is unbelievable. I'm so grateful and thankful and humbled, and thank you so much to the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce for choosing me. This is my class of 2024. Thank you. This brings so much more fuel to the fuel I already have, and to continue and doing what I love so much doing. Thank you. Ah.
Well, thank you to Gal Gadot for being you. Well, let's take a look now at the weather forecast. And we have clear skies expected around most of the country, with lows of around 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, we'll see sunshine as the skies will be clear alongside steady top temperatures, seeing highs of about 32 degrees Celsius or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's the time we have for today's news. For more updates from Israel and all your devices, check out our ILTV channels, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Steve Leibowitz. Be well, and thanks for watching.